Hey everybody, back once again, and week 3 of the American Song Contest is now in the books. We had 12 songs compete this week instead of the regular 11, and I think we can all agree this was probably the strongest week to date. I don't know why they decided this is where they were going to put 12 songs, because I have about 7 or 8 songs that I would love to qualify, and the auto qualifier was not one of them. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that, as well as talk about what happened with week 2. So let's get started. So as the last show opened, we opened with our qualifiers from week 2 before starting the entries for week 3. So they showed again the jury votes, and it was North Dakota, Kansas, and Montana all that got through to the next round. Maine, King Coyote, unfortunately, with fourth in the jury vote, did not get through to the next round. This, of course, means that I only got 1 out of 3 correct. I did get Kansas correct, but I was wrong about Nebraska and New York. I'm still a bit surprised that New York didn't qualify, as it does have the highest view count on YouTube. Now, most of those views did come after voting had already ended, and it was very clear that in week number 2, NBC took a different approach. I think they ran some YouTube ads as videos, which counted as views, which is why the view counts for week 2 are exponentially higher than weeks 1 and week 3 so far. So I still think Aneesa has a chance to come back through the redemption just because of view counts, but that was one that did surprise me that it didn't get through to the next round. I think Kansas deserved. I think it was second with the juries. It was the most polished performance. Yes, it was primarily playback, but it was still a great song, a song I'm still listening to, and a great performance. Still worthwhile, I think, to go through to the next round. North Dakota was really good. Montana, I still don't quite vibe with. I don't see what's in it. He was third with the juries, and he got through, I guess, as the third qualifier. So maybe that means he just barely got through over someone else. It's possible. I don't expect him to make it to the final. I don't think the juries are going to love it that much to save it, and I don't think the televote will either. So I think Montana's going to end up the end of the road going into the semifinal. So now moving into this week, week 3, the audio production was the best it has been. You didn't get a lot of those doubling vocals. It felt like the backing tracks were either more heavily relied on or just better mixed overall. It was definitely the highest quality production, not only in the audio, but in the staging as well. I think the staging worked for most of the artists. There wasn't anything glaringly awful, at least compared to last week where I had a lot more criticisms, I think. I'm still not sold on Kelly as a host. There are moments where it just feels like she doesn't see this as a competition about the artists, and it's more of just a show, kind of like her show. When Sabu from the Northern Mariana Islands gave both Snoop and Kelly a necklace, Sabu kind of leaned in to say something, but Kelly was not paying any attention and pulled the mic away to say something herself. And it just created this weird, awkward moment. It's things like that where the host really needs to be, or the hosts of the show need to be leaning on the art. This is about the artists. This is about the 56 artists from the 56 states and regions. And she needs to understand that this is not like her TV show, right? It's very, very different. So I'm still not quite sold on her as a host. Whereas Snoop, I think just because he's got that more chill, laid back attitude, he pulls himself back a little bit from it and leaves it up to the music. Perfect. That's all we really want. We don't need overcomplications from the hosts. Just, let them talk, let them sing, add a little bit of energy, but you don't have to repeat yourself. It feels like Kelly repeats herself a lot and kind of says the same thing over and over for a joke, and it doesn't quite hit the mark all the time. So she still hasn't sold me. She's got a couple more shows to do it, but I would, if an American Song Contest 2 happens, or season 2, I would probably look to replace Kelly. As much as I love her and I love her music, just not quite right for this. So right out of the gates of week number 3, Grant Kanoki was the first performing entry with Mr. Independent. As you know, I did a interview with him on my channel, and I think along with Alexa, he is one of the favorites. I would put Alexa and Grant as the top 2 favorites before I would line up anyone else to win this competition. This performance had it all. The song was great, but it was the performance that brought it to life. It was all the different camera angles, even going into, say, the second chorus, right, where it starts with his back, the audience is at his back, and then halfway through that chorus, camera turns around, now it's at his front, now he's got the wall behind him, then he has the dance breakdown. All the elements were there, start, finish, all these different backgrounds. He had the drummer in the background, he had the little bit of smoke, he had the dance moves. It was the total package. This was everything you want in Eurovision. This was polished, ready for the grand final Eurovision moment, or American Song Contest moment, I guess you could say. And I was a little bit surprised it didn't win the jury vote. I thought this was going to win the jury vote just because it had everything. And yes, there were some backing vocals, but most of his playback was just during the chorus. And even at the end, he did something that many of the other artists didn't do, right? He sang over top the backing track in a different way, which other artists were just trying to still sing along with it. So even when he used a little bit of that backing track just in the chorus, he still sounded great, right? You could still tell that was him singing over top of it, and he sounded awesome. So swimming through the semifinals, there's no way Texas is not qualifying. I don't believe it. I don't believe there's a world where it doesn't qualify, or Dimension. I think my second favorite entry of the night was actually Alabama, Nico with The Difference. I thought this was a surefire qualifier for the jury vote. I was like, this is everything you want. Flawless vocals, gorgeous synergy between them. Obviously, there are a couple, and they've had a lot of time to practice it. The staging was simple but elegant. It had everything. I was like, this is the jury winner, surely. No, it's third with the juries, I think it was. That's kind of questionable, and I'll get to why a little later on. Of course, it was Tennessee that ended up winning the jury vote, and albeit was a decent song and a great vocal performance by a male, as has been the tradition of our jury qualifiers so far, it was one Blue Jeans line short of being just about any country song I've ever heard. There was a Ford pickup truck, there was the Marlboro Reds. For a song contest, it really felt like every other country song, but I guess that's what the juries liked. So they went ahead and selected that as their winner. But second in the juries was Florida. The song that was almost entirely playback, the staging that was just TikTok and Pink, literally Regina George on a Wednesday. That's all that staging was. And it got second with the juries. That was extremely questionable for me. I want to know what the jury saw in that they didn't see in everyone else that performed on that night, because so many of these other performances were great, and I would have never, in my wildest dreams, put Florida as the second jury vote. And they may have very well just saved it to the semifinals, because I don't think it's going to get the televote to get it there. I think the jury vote will end up having saved that entry. And it really upsets me because there are a lot of entries that just missed in that top 4 jury vote that I love, that I think are far more deserving. Brooke Alex, I don't take pictures anymore. As much as I love Grant Kanoki and I love Mr. Independent, Brooke Alex's song is the one I've been streaming the most. That song is a certified bop. It is way better than Flirt. Way better than Flirt. It has a chance of not going through. Colorado, really enjoyed that performance. Riker Lynch really worked the stage. He obviously has experience in this department of being an artist and performing in front of large crowds. I think Jewel is another one that probably deserved to be higher with the juries than Florida. I'll take my Sea Turtle friend. I will take Sabu, Sunsets and Sea Turtles over Florida. It was a very humbling performance. It was a very change of pace song for the night, and maybe he wasn't the strongest vocally, but it still sounded nice, and it was still gorgeously staged. Yes, was it just a beautiful sunset and sea turtles and aqua life and water? Yeah, but that didn't make it any less gorgeous. So they were showing the votes actively, not only for the jury vote, but also for the televote throughout the night. This could sabotage Florida and Alabama, right? Because Alabama was showed briefly as having 37% of the popular vote nationwide. And of course, Florida was shown as having the second highest jury vote. So whether or not that sways fans to say, well, I shouldn't give them votes because they're probably going to get through, or whether that sways them to say, oh, well, I should vote with what everyone else is voting for. I don't love that. I wish they would take that out. I think it was fine showing like one state and saying this is how a state is voting. That's fine. That's interesting. But when you just show how all the votes are going, you're spoiling everything and ultimately screwing it up. Same thing goes with the jury vote. Just show us the winner and then next week show us the order. You don't have to tell us how things are doing because you're skewing the voting. So if Florida and Alabama both end up not qualifying, even though so far two of three juries have qualified every time, if Alabama and Florida don't qualify, I bet it's because of that. I bet people vote against what they thought was going to get in, and it just screws everything up. So hope they cut that out. Again, I like that they're trying new things. Let's not try that again. Let's go a different route. Let's get into my 3 qualifiers for this week. Texas is going through. Texas is going to win the televote. I have no doubt in my mind that Grant Knoche is going to the next round. No doubt. He's currently leading the YouTube views as well, so it's a lock. I just don't see how he doesn't go through. So I'm putting him through. I think Nico gets through. I think Alabama gets through too. Of course, they did briefly show, as I mentioned, that vote that showed them way ahead of everyone else. I think they do enough to get through. Now, the third one, again, I'm trying to predict. I would love it to be Brooke Alex, personally. I would love it to be Brooke Alex, which is funny because if you watch the Grant interview, Grant, Nico, and Brooke all became very good friends through this whole ordeal. So the 3 of them going through would be very humbling, I think, and they would definitely celebrate together. I'm worried for Brooke just because of how far ahead Florida was with the jury. I'll say Florida. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I do not get all 3 right next week. And I hope it's Florida that doesn't make it. But I'm going to say that the 3 top juries, Texas, Alabama, Florida, are all going through to the next round. And then hopefully maybe New Jersey or Colorado or even Jewel find a redemption, because there were so many good songs. And I didn't even talk about South Carolina, Jesse Prati. That was a great song too. I loved almost every single song tonight. Delaware was good. South Dakota was nice. We'll have to see how it goes. Right now, I'd say my 2 redemption picks are Anissa and New Boot Goofin. I think one of those 2 at least will be back with the redemption vote. We maybe just have to see what's on the next 2 weeks to see if there's another song out there that might come back. So we will catch up with you in week 4, and we will see you next time.